Hey there, Christophe from the French Herbal. Do you have a lot of old herbal books at home? I do. I'm kind of a bookworm, and I strongly believe that there's a lot to learn from the period between the 1800s and the first half of the 1900s, because the herbal practice was quite mature back then, and that was before most modern drugs arrived. So once in a while, I sit down on my couch, I pick one of those old books, and I flip randomly through the pages and see what I land on. And often you'll come across blends and formulas or ways of combining herbs that don't make sense at first, right? The logic isn't obvious. And I'm not in the author's head, and often the author isn't alive anymore, so it's not like I can shoot him or her an email and ask questions. But then I catch myself and I think, this is a great opportunity to put my knowledge into practice, right? What if I took some of those old formulas and really put my brain to work? What if I tried to explain those blends to you with what I know today, even if it's not perfect? Right? I think it's a great exercise. So that's what I'm going to do with you today. I don't know if you'll find the exercise interesting. Let me know if you do, and let me know if you don't. It's going to be a bit of a speculation, of course, because at the end of the day, I don't really know why the author combined this particular herbs. I'll try to guess, extrapolate, and play detective, but I won't have any certainties. The book I picked today is one I talk about a lot on my French channel. It's one of the most famous books in France for herbal practice. It was first published in 1984. It's called simply La Phytothérapie, so Phytotherapy, by Jean Valnet. Valnet was a real herbal doc. I mean, he had a lot of clinical practice. I will tell you about him and his life another day. I always say that Valnet's book seems so simple. You know, just one page, he tells you about the plant, the dosages, very short properties and indications, and that's it. But it's actually one of the hardest books to truly understand. And when he puts an indication in italics, it means he strongly believes that the herb can help for that particular situation. That's it. Just one word in italics with a list of other slightly less important indications. So if you look at a herb like white dead nettle, Lamium album, then he will list diarrhea, painful menses, hemorrhoids, varicose veins, cystitis, etc. But only one of those is in italics, vaginal discharge. It means that in his practice, white dead nettle is particularly good for this. He's quite the minimalist. So anyway, I love Valnet, and I flipped through the pages and I landed on a blend for bedwetting. And I'm going to show it to you, and we are going to deconstruct it as best as we can. Sounds good? Okay. But before we start, a quick reminder. I am not a doctor, pharmacist, or licensed healthcare professional. The information I share with you in this episode is for educational and informational purposes only, not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any condition, and it does not replace professional medical advice. Okay, let's dive in. The blend I've chosen is for enuresis, the fancy word for bedwetting. And here, we're assuming the child is old enough that the situation is considered a problem, right? For instance, he or she doesn't want to sleep over at a friend's house or maybe go to summer camp because of this. So it's affecting quality of life, and the parents are asking for a herbal blend that could help. Valnet's blend is formulated for a tea, and yeah, I know, but hey, back in the 1980s in France, when kids were told to drink that thing, they drank that thing. And today over here, some kids will drink herbal teas and some won't. It's a bit of a hit and miss. I mean, I have 3 kids, and the youngest drink herbal teas without a blink. The second does it under threat, well, not anymore. He's too old and too big for me now. And the third one would gladly throw it in my face. But anyway, back to Valnet's formula. So it includes St. John's wort, Hypericum perforatum, 10 grams. And here we're talking dried plant weight, right? When a herbal book doesn't specify whether it's fresh or dried and they give you weights, it's always dried plant. Yarrow, Achillea millefolium, the flowering tops, 10 grams. Juniper, Juniperus communis, the cones, also called juniper berries, 10 grams. Knotgrass, Polygonum aviculare, the aerial parts, 20 grams. And silverweed, Potentia anserina, the aerial parts, 30 grams. 2 cups a day. And Valnet doesn't specify how much of the blend to use per cup, but following traditional French herbalism practice, I would say roughly 1 good tablespoon per cup. Okay, so 5 plants. You probably recognize some, right, like St. John's wort and yarrow and juniper, but others might be less familiar to you, like knotgrass or silverweed. But all of them are common in the countryside and usually available in many herbal shops. So why these plants, do you think? Shall I let you click on pause and think for a few minutes? I think I shall. Okay, so we'll start with the highest proportion. Silverweed, which makes up like 37.5% of the blend, if my math is right. Silverweed is best known for its high tannin content. Yeah, it's part of the rose family, the Rosaceae, and that's always a big clue. This family is loaded with tannins. Some sources say that this plant can contain up to 10% tannins by dry weight, which is pretty significant in the plant world. And these tannins have a special effect on mucous membranes. They act as a tonic for membranes that are a little loose, lacking elasticity or strength. And for the urinary tract, we could see bedwetting as a tissue weakness, right? The plumbing, the tanks, the sphincters are not doing their job. They're maybe relaxing a little too much at night. So we're going to tan them a bit, tighten them up. I think you get the logic. If not, see my episode on tannins. Next up, knotgrass, which makes up 25% of the blend. And this one is trickier because it contains tannins, mucilages, flavonoids, and minerals. So it's not as one-dimensional as silverweed, for instance. The mineral content is quite important, and I'll come back to that. For now, note that knotgrass contains silica, which I'll revisit later. Silica is an important clue to what knotgrass will do for us. Based on its constituents, we can guess that the tannins of knotgrass might also reinforce silverweed's tannins, since different plants have different type of tannin molecules, so they complement each other. And the minerals, we'll get back to that in a few seconds. Next, we see that knotgrass is a diuretic. And you're like, interesting, but why would we want to make somebody pee more if they're already struggling to hold it in at night? And we'll come back to this again, but you'll see there's a logic. The next plant is juniper with its cones, those little black balls that you put in sauerkraut. Well, you also put them in your tea. And it's a great plant. It's known for a lot of things. Digestive aid. It's an anti-inflammatory for joints. But I think I know why Valnet included it here, because it is a very strong diuretic. Again, so let's cut to the chase and talk about diuretics for bedwetting. If someone wets the bed, wouldn't it make sense to empty the bladder as much as possible before nighttime? That way, the bladder isn't under pressure when the kid goes to sleep. indeed, right? That is why Valnet wants to see diuretics in the blend. And this tells us the blend should be taken during the day and not in the evening. An important detail that Valnet doesn't mention because, as usual, he gives very few instructions, that Herbal rascal. Sorry, Valnet, I love you, I really do, but you might have given us a little more information. In practice, the child would need to take the tea in the morning and maybe mid to late afternoon, but not later. And ideally, we would test it during a vacation period just to see how it works at home, right? So we found a logic for juniper and knotgrass based on their diuretic properties. And along the way, we've figured out when to take the tea. We also discussed the role of astringency to tighten up the plumbing. Okay, so far so good. A quick pause to let you know that you can grab my free ebook on preparing herbal teas for the 4 seasons. It's full of simple recipes and blends you can make with herbs you can buy or even grow almost anywhere. The link is right below this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Now we have 2 plants left. Let's start with the simpler one, St. John's wort. So why St. John's wort here? Well, if you've ever dealt with a 10 or 11-year-old who still wets the bed, and you know a little about St. John's wort properties, the reason is probably obvious. There is stress and anxiety in that household. The child is probably a little ashamed and dreading another night of soaking the sheets. The parents are probably frustrated. They've tried different methods, some more helpful than others, and maybe they tried even a little shaming. And look, I'm a dad. I'm not here to judge. I'm just pointing out the obvious. There's clear stress here, right? So St. John's wort brings a little sunshine to these tense situations. It's relaxing, it's anxiolytic, antidepressant, and it promotes better sleep. That's an important point here too. And finally, we have yarrow. Yarrow is one of those plants that does so much. It does so much that it's challenging to pin it down at first. So if we look at a few key properties, well, it's diuretic. We've covered that. What stands out to me here is its circulatory effects, both on arterial and blood return and lymphatic return. It's a great decongestant, ensuring that there's no blood stasis in any one area of the body. And so, could bedwetting be linked to some kind of abdominal congestion or pelvic congestion? Possibly. In that case, yarrow would improve circulation, ensuring that the area is better nourished and drained. It is also astringent, of course, but it's so much more, and it's hard to tell what Valnet had in mind. I'm just, again, speculating here. So let's recap. In this blend, we're addressing the tonicity of mucous membranes, tubes, and sphincters, tightening things up with tannins. Fluid elimination during the day away from bedtime with diuretics to ensure the bladder is empty and not under pressure at night. Circulation and decongestion in the pelvic area and the nervous system, calming stress and anxiety. Now, after the blend, Valnet adds 2 very brief but crucial pieces of advice. So brief that you might just skim over them and focus only on the formula, but that would be a mistake. First, he says remineralizing. Just one word. What he means is add mineral-rich plants. Plants containing calcium, magnesium, potassium, silica. Why? Well, because first of all, these minerals are essential for a healthy nervous system, which ties back to our goal of stabilizing the nerves, right? And second, because they are what we call in French practice restructuring. They help to build high-quality tissues. Silica, in particular, is key for collagen production, ensuring that mucous membranes, the tubes, the bladders are strong. And this is where knotgrass comes in. Remember, I mentioned it's rich in minerals, especially silica. Well, there you go. Restructuring the urinary system tissues if there is maybe a mineral deficiency underlying. So, and if we wanted to add a little something, maybe we could add nettle leaf powder, which is super rich in minerals. We could maybe add a little teaspoon of the leaf powder in applesauce. And yeah, I know it's not like a delicious crème brûlée, but that would work too, to add one more plant to the protocol away from bedtime again, because nettle is very diuretic. And the last piece of advice, not plant related, but tossed in so casually that I love it. He says, and a good family atmosphere. You can imagine that bedwetting treatment goes way beyond herbs into psychology, right? The parents and the child need to approach the situation as a team without guilt or shame. My conclusion is like, wow, what finesse. I mean, Valnet gives us a generic bedwetting blend. He doesn't know the kid. He doesn't know the person, right? If he were evaluating someone like we clinical herbalists do, right? In person, we spend like an hour or 90 minutes with the person to underline strengths and weaknesses. Well, he would probably adjust the blend. But as a one-size-fits-all formula, it's brilliant. It's addressing multiple angles. But then again, it's Valnet, right? We know he's not just throwing things together. He's like the Jacques Pepin of medicinal plants. And come on now, if you don't know Jacques Pepin, do me a favor, go look him up on YouTube and check out his omelettes. Just do not tell your cardiologist when you see how much butter he puts in the pan, okay? Sorry, I digress. Anyway, I love this kind of exercise, deconstructing herbal blends from the past. And sorry if I dragged you into my plant geek delirium, but truly, if you want to understand herbalism, those old books make for great practice and a ton of head scratching too. And I picked today's blend because it's one I mostly understand, right? But there are plenty of others. Today's blend is just 1/4 of a single page out of an 80-page formula section of the book, the part of the book that lists blends for different conditions. Maybe next time we'll pick something a bit harder and we'll see how it goes. Okay, friends, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you soon for the next episode of The French Herbal.